Stacking, how are we?
Oh, very good, very good. Kriens, how are you doing?
Terrific. Charlie Hildebrand
Started
is
out it started out bad today, but things have progressed nicely.
good. Charlie Hildebrand is here. Charlie Hildebrand covering volleyball. How was that?
It was hot in that gym. I sweated a lot. I sweated like a guy who doesn't work out anymore and hasn't been in shape since high school.
It was very hot. Humid, one would say even humid out.
Yep.
Vin Scully calling his last game with the Dodgers at home. I would like.
Isn't it just his last home game? Isn't he doing next week at San Francisco?
Yes, his last home game. And the plan, I wanted to get the game up here, but something's not working. And share it here and then listen to that. Rockies were ahead 3-2. 2 out, Stacking, bottom of the ninth. What do you think happened?
Between Dodgers and Rockies?
Yep, it's 3-2 Rockies. It's his last home game.
I'm guessing it's a walk-off home run for
Bases
the
were
Dodgers.
empty. The bases were empty.
Oh, well then strikeout, and he's like, that's the way my career's been. I've struck out plenty of times.
Home run. Home run for the Dodgers, 3-3, so extra innings appear to be in the offing. So that would have been a
Okay,
nice
so
thing.
I said a home run. I just wasn't.
yes. Close.
It was not a walk-off home run.
No, it was not. But a game-tying walk-off.
Something like that. Something like that. Stacking. Woke up this morning. Watched a college football show. And on the bottom of the deal there, they got the bottom deal.
Yep.
And had NFL, what's going on in the NFL today. And then the baseball thing. The baseball thing got red. I'm like, I wonder what happened with the baseball. And what happened with the baseball was that 24-year-old Jose Fernandez, pitcher for our Marlins, died early today. Boating accident. 24, as mentioned. Pitched for 4 years. Made his debut as a 20-year-old Rookie of the Year. Had basically, he pitched 2 full seasons is all. Pitched 50 innings in 2014. Pitched 64 last year. And Tommy John came back from that. Was as good as he's ever been. Led the league with strikeouts per 9, FIP. 23 years old, starting the season. Well on his way to a Hall of Fame career. Cut short. Nathan Stacking, when did you first hear about that this morning?
I received a text message from one of my friends. Let's pull it up here. It was like at 8:15 in the morning, and he said, Jose Fernandez killed. And I couldn't believe it. It's always sad, most of the time it's sad when you hear of an athlete who dies. But this one hit home, or not home, I guess, but because I'm not from Cuba. But this one hit me a little harder than some of the other ones that we've heard in recent years. I think just because he was so good at what he did, and it's just one of those incidents where you're like, how is this guy dead? I mean, why would you go out on a boat at 3 in the morning? Would be a question that I have in this, but that, I mean, just it saddens me. He's such a well-liked athlete, I think. It would be like if Teddy Bridgewater died. I think if I were a big fan of the Marlins, but a guy who is so beloved by his teammates and by players in the game and so well respected, it's just really, really sad. And I still really can't believe it. I'm kind of at a loss. I really am.
Between him and Chris Sale, they were probably my 2 favorite pitchers. And last game was 5 days ago. He 8 shutout innings against the Nationals, 12 strikeouts, one of his better games he's ever pitched. And he was scheduled to pitch today, but they pushed it back a day till tomorrow. So who knows if he goes out on the boat? Probably doesn't if he actually pitches today. game with.
I think what Don Mattingly's thinking now, and I don't know if he was the one who made that decision or not, or if it came up from someone else, but I mean, they have to be thinking about that choice now for the rest of their lives, and whether or not that decision
would have made a difference.
If they had just let him make his schedule start today, if he would still be with us.
Got to save the arm, Stacken. Got to save the arm. So he was my guy. He was very good, and he had Tommy John there a couple of years ago. Came right back, and hard to say what his career would have been, but as far as pitchers, he had to be in everybody's top 5, if not top 3, with Kershaw and anybody else you want to put in there with him. Story getting back from Cuba, defecting there, trying that many times, and finally succeeding. Charlie, what are your impressions here of Jose Fernandez?
I didn't know as much about him as you guys did. I knew he played for the Marlins. I knew he was young and fairly good, and that he was a pitcher, and that was about it. But I mean, obviously, whenever people die young, it's always kind of rough. And I mean, I don't want to get into comparing like which ways are worse or anything. They're all bad, and when you're dead, you're dead. But I mean, it's an unfortunate day, especially for the Marlins. I mean, whenever they can have somebody really good that's kind of a star, I mean, you want to hold on to them and do whatever you can with them, as opposed to teams, like the Yankees or the Dodgers or something that get guys like that more often. So I mean, it's a sad and unfortunate day, especially for the Marlins.
I was driving when the Marlins were doing their press conference about this, and you have Dave Sampson, who's the Marlins president or general manager. Mm-hmm. I was driving, so I was just listening to this on ESPN radio, but they said if you're watching on TV, I mean, you've never seen a whole team as saddened by a loss as what the Marlins were feeling. I mean, from Mattingly to Sampson to everyone there, like the whole team was gathered, and I'm anxious to see some of the video from that conference and kind of see the team and everything. But yeah, I mean, this is one of the more tragic stories that we've heard, not just in baseball but in sports in general for years now. I mean, at least off the top of my head, not trying to be prisoner of the moment here, but I can't think of a story that is this tragic involving a player. Maybe, I mean, not since Sean Taylor.
Don't die very often, so.
No, but I would say, like, the comparisons have been to Sean Taylor, so I guess that would maybe be the closest thing. Of course, he was the victim of a murder, and this is just a boating accident, and that's all it is an accident. But I mean, I guess that's the only thing, or the one name, I guess, that really comes to mind that can be even slightly comparable to it, if you even say it.
I think the Broncos had a defensive back. I don't remember how long ago this was now that got. I think it was like in an altercation outside of like a nightclub or a strip club or something.
Yes. Yep.
That's about the only. I don't want to take away from like other people that have, died young as professional athletes, but those are the only ones I can think of off the top of my head.
There was a prospect here. This was 2 off seasons ago.
The Cardinals guy?
15, yeah. Oscar Taveras. He was a big-time prospect, and he died early on in the off season, I think, right around the World Series. Oh, yeah, but it's very, somebody this young and somebody this talented. You got, someone like Len Bias with the Celtics 30 years ago with cocaine, and other people that have died early. But, yeah, as far as somebody that was this good this early, probably nobody could match him. And
you don't want to say that just because he
was
has talent makes it any more tragic. I mean, if someone else...
No, but I think it's worth noting that it makes them, they're more well-known that way, though, also. Because, I mean, if you're talking about prospects, that's not any less sad, but they're not going to be as well known.
It's not going to affect as many.
As a starting pitcher or a starting defensive back that's, really good playing at, an all-pro or all-star kind of level.
I would say it's not going to have the impact as this one would have. Everybody knew him. Everybody liked him. Drew reminded me of the when he had 2 home runs, and I think it was his first one with the Braves, and the assholes that the Braves were, and he got excited, and they got all pissy about it, and that was funny because the Braves are dumb, and now they're terrible.
How ironic that they were playing the Braves this weekend.
Yes. So as you said, interesting that they push his start back a day. Was that necessary? No. He threw like 105, 110 pitches that start against Washington. They're not making the playoffs, so there's no reason not to start him today. But never happened, and I think he struck out 32% of the batters he faced. That's an all-time record, so he's got a couple records as far as strikeouts. When he led the league in strikeouts this year. So him and Sale, I don't know who I picked for. I'm pretty sure I picked him for NL Cy Young, and someday you'd assume Chris Sale, he would win it as well. But kind of just a weird deal where one of the better pitchers in baseball dies at the age of 24. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I know we shouldn't focus on this now, but I guess the question that we will have to consider more in the days and weeks to come is why was he out there boating at 3 a.m?
Yeah, I don't know when. I don't think
I would assume it's because he's a millionaire. He's a rich guy that's under 25 years old.
Right.
I'm not. We don't know pretty much any details. There were 2 other guys. They say between 24 and 27 years old. I guess that's when they found him. I think 3 o'clock. So who knows when this happened? I know it. Maybe it happened at midnight. Maybe it happened at 1, 2 o'clock. I think this is something that it looked fairly close to the shore. They got the rocks. If you've seen some pictures of the boat overturned, they didn't have their life vests on. If that would have made a difference, there was no drug or alcohol involved. Speed was probably an issue there, and I don't know. It was something that wasn't called in and said, "Oh, there's an accident here." It's just something that the Coast Guard or whoever ended up finding after a while. So whether it's 3 o'clock or midnight or whatever it is, late night boating situation there. So yeah, heck of a deal there. Marlins, not bad this season, around 500, and Jose Fernandez dead at 24.
And they're one of the true up-and-coming teams, I would say, in the game with Fernandez and Giancarlo Stanton.
Yep, he came back from his Tommy John here and pitched very well. So the other big baseball story here, on a different note, would be Vin Scully. It's been a big deal this week. It's not his last game. It's just his last home game. 3 games at San Francisco next weekend. That'll wrap it up for him. And as we speak, it's 3-3 in the 10th inning, so extra baseball there for Vin Scully. Charlie Hildebrand, a lot of people think this guy's the best of all time. What is it, 67 years back with the Brooklyn Dodgers. I assume he's got to have the record for the most baseball games called, the most games period called. It'd be hard to think anybody would be topping that. Is he the best from what you've heard of him?
I mean, there's some other guys I can name that I've heard of that are good, but I don't know if anyone has the general. Or I should put it this way: that there's a lot of guys that you hear about that are good, but I don't know if I've heard anyone ever say anything bad about Vin Scully ever. And I mean, he was old and we were little kids, and he's still doing it now. So I mean, it'll be a completely different thing for almost everybody that's alive when somebody else is calling Dodgers games. And I know, I don't know when it was. At some point in the last 4 or 5 days, I got home late from work and was flipping through channels and saw something where he was addressing the Dodgers crowd on the field. So I thought that was the Dodgers' last home game, but obviously it turns out that that's not. But he was just kind of, thanking everybody and kind of being, funny and saying goofy things. And the only thing I remember is I think he said he's 89,
Yep.
I think.
Yep.
And he said, I'm 89 years old, and people keep asking me, like, what are you going to do now that you're retiring? He said, I don't know. I guess just try to stay alive. And I thought that was funny, the way he said it. And he said something else that was funny. I don't remember what it was, though.
Spend time with his family. Like, how much more time are you going to get?
And he was a guy that does games by himself, radio and TV, and did a lot of other games, did some football games, used to do some national baseball games, one of the more famous baseball games of all time, Game 6 of the 86 series with Bill Buckner screwing it up for Boston. He's the voice you hear on that. So he's done a little bit of everything, done some golf too. And there's been a push in the last couple of years for him to do a World Series game, or the World Series, the whole thing. Dodgers in the playoffs, and Cubs are the favorite, but the Dodgers, they got as good a shot as anybody of making the deal. So I would assume if the Dodgers would make it, they would ask him, and I would assume, like past years, he would say no. Nathan Stacken, do you think he would ever do that? Dodgers or no Dodgers, saying, hey, World Series, here it is.
I don't think he would. He doesn't seem the type of guy to really want to accept the spotlight, or I guess accept something like this. To me, it would kind of be like if he were to do it, or if MLB, Fox, or whatever decided to extend the gesture of to have Scully call the game, it would be like ESPN extending it to Craig Sager to do an NBA Finals game, since Sager had never done that before this year. I'd be okay with it, but I don't think he will do it. I was just kind of thinking, we talk about sports unbreakable records. Is 67 years that he's done Dodgers games, will that ever be broken by anyone calling games for a single team, let alone call games for 67 years? Because I say no.
If you could make it to 50, that'd be impressive. But the thing was, he started, 21, 22 years old? There's no 21 or 22-year-olds calling Major League Baseball games anymore, so...
I was going to say, nobody will do it for that long at that high of a level. I mean, you could find someone doing that at,
at a high school level.
South Dakota School of Mines or someplace like that, maybe. Yep. But not in the four major sports. And then, I'm trying to think back, because I don't remember exactly when some of these guys played, but here's a guy who's still announcing games now that can be like, oh yeah, I saw, in person, not as a little kid, but called games that, Duke Snyder and Sandy Koufax and Willie Mays, and I don't know
Mickey
I don't remember how long Jackie Robinson played. If he would have still been there when he played. Yeah. And then when it comes to, cross league or interleague play, I don't know what games he did, but this could be, oh yeah, he's might have seen, Mickey Mantle or Roger Maris or
Ted Williams.
Ted Williams, just so many guys that were well into retirement when we were little kids that you'd read about in books and the middle school library or whatever that he saw play in person. And called games in person, and also still called games with Barry Bonds and guys like that too.
We can talk about who the greatest commentators are of all time. Is Vin Scully at the top, or is there someone? He's got to be in the top 5, wouldn't you say?
I'd be comfortable putting him number 1. We're doing it so long at a high level. Charlie kind of touched on that. And right now, you listen to him now, and certain announcers, cough, Dick Stockton or someone like that. They're like, boy, this guy really is not very good. And he used to be the guy in the 80s calling games for CBS basketball. But this right now, Dick Stockton looks 85. but he's only like 72. He's awful. We like Vern Lundquist. He's good. He's calling it quits at the end of this year in his early 70s. Along with that tribute on Friday, they had a little video presentation before that, and I found it funny that Al Michaels at 71 years old or whatever is like, yeah, I grew up listening to Vin Scully. Al Michaels at 71 out in California. And going to Charlie's point about the players, Bob Costas put it this way. His first year was what, 1940 something? Go back.
It's 2016 now, 67 years ago. I think it'd be 49.
So 49, and Bob Costas said it. There was probably some player there that was playing in the 30s. There absolutely was, maybe even in the 20s during that year. And right now, in the year 2016, there will be some player that's playing right now that will also play in the year 2030. So he will literally have called games from players that played in the 1930s all the way to the decade of the 2030s. A span of literally 100 years. He will have said, I called, if you go from the earliest to the latest, you're probably talking about 1928 to, 2038 or something like that. So, yeah, that's something that'll never be topped at all. So.
And as he got older, he was still effective at doing it too. Because I know there's always, I think you kind of mentioned earlier, there's some guys that get older and it's just like, this guy's doing it, but isn't any good anymore. And the one,
Dick Stockton,
the one that I always remember was that Keith Jackson used to do games, and I think the last one he did was that Texas USC Rose Bowl, and it was just like, this game's really good, but you're not really good at calling these games anymore, Keith Jackson, because he was in his late 70s or early 80s at the time.
I don't think Brent Musburger's lost it that much, has he?
No, I think Musburger is still good, although I haven't heard him call as many games since
hard to see
the SEC network.
Hard to see him when they stick him in goddamn Kentucky every week to do Kentucky games. For God's sakes, what a waste! What a goddamn waste! I know they want to build up the SEC network, but what a goddamn waste to have him doing South Carolina, Kentucky, or Auburn, Mississippi State. My God.
And I don't want to badmouth Chris Fowler because I think Chris Fowler's fine. He's just not.
He's not that good.
He's not Brent Musburger or even Joe Tessitore. I think those two are probably the best ESPN college football guys. That not just when they do it, it's good, but they just make it seem like a big deal too.
Yeah,
I think Chris Fowler, he's completely